Well, as you can see in today's show, we're going to take a step away from the computer. We're going to piggyback on a previous show where I started to talk about some of community college's IT programs, and today we brought in a special guest, a resident expert, other than myself, to discuss some of the specific topics in these programs. So hop aboard and join us for another episode of Computer Train.
It's time for Computer Train, the weekly TV program that trains you how to use your computer, with your host, El Paso Community College faculty member Russ Myers.
So in the previous show, what we were talking about is I was showing you some of the degree plans offered here at El Paso Community College. And two of those degree plans related to networking technologies, and that's a little bit above my pay grade. I'm not very familiar with that, so we brought in another professor, and I'd like to introduce a colleague of mine, a friend of mine who teaches in the networking, Tony Vargas. Tony, welcome to our show today.
Thank you for having me.
All right. So the first thing I'm sure people are interested in, and I've done this for myself in the show, is tell us a little bit about your background, maybe trying to lead up, how you came to community college and how long you've been there and things of that nature.
Okay, well, do we have 5 hours here? No, just kidding. I actually started getting into computers back in the service. When I was in the Navy, I was part of the anti-submarine warfare. So we did a lot of plotting with back then with computers, but in actuality there were machines that had little dials on them, and you just kind of
okay. So just to keep it in reference for today, what time frame are we talking about? What years?
We're talking about 66 through about 70.
Okay, so we're talking a little bit ago. I don't specifically remember those years.
I do very clearly. But anyway, so when I got out, I went back and finished up my degree, and initially I was accounting and economics. And so then I went into the running the family business, and we started growing quite a bit, and I needed to do a lot of counting. And it got tired doing the pencil and eraser things.
Right, kind of desktop kind of stuff, okay.
So I went into looking around for computers to see how I could do it. Back then, we didn't have any of the CAN programs that we have today.
Right.
So everything had to be done by hand.
So just to let the viewers know, CAN programs is basically when you purchase software that already does something for you. You don't have to make it up yourself.
Right.
Okay.
And so I created some programs on Lotus that addressed our computing systems.
Lotus, I haven't heard that word in a while. That's kind of predecessor for Microsoft Excel, which I've been doing on the show.
Right. And as I kept doing it, I started getting a lot of interest in it and picking up what I had learned in the Navy. And so I approached another colleague of ours from Mission, Duffy.
Okay.
And I asked him, that I was interested in getting the second degree in computers. And he asked me, well, why don't you come in and sit down in one of my classes and see how you like it? And so I did, and I ended up liking the concept, so I went ahead and got my second degree in computers.
Okay, so you actually got a computer-related degree at El Paso Community College?
No,
Or where was this?
At the UTEP. I went.
Oh, interesting. I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Okay.
So then after a couple of years, then Duffy offered me if I would be interested in teaching some of the intro classes.
Okay.
And so it took him a while, and finally I said, okay, I'll try one. And in doing so, he signed me up for 3. So I went from not being in front of a classroom to being in front of 3 classrooms.
Yeah, that's kind of how I started. I had the full-time job in computer-related field, and then I kind of taught 1, then I taught 2, and then sure enough, I applied, and now we're both full-time instructors.
Yeah. So when we started up, when I first started up, the CISCO Academies was being established.
Mm-hmm.
And they asked us if we would be interested in being a regional academy for the El Paso area. The high schools were creating their local academies. So we went for the training and started going up, got certified as CCNA, and did the first CISCO classes. And then we went to the CCNP, got certified as a CCNP. And then we did the security. And then we've expanded into other areas that they're based on the security that I took. Mm-hmm. We've gone into cybersecurity as far as the campus.
Yeah, I was there for a little bit. I don't know if you remember. I actually went to the training with you. But after we came back and I started teaching a little bit, I really didn't like it, so I pulled the ripcord and got out. So I'm glad we had someone that stayed with it. So what I was talking about in previous shows with the degree plans, so kind of what we wanted to talk to you about specifically was the major networking degree, and then talking about, I showed how the student could branch off into two areas, more networking type things and more security.
Right.
So what are some of the technologies and you know, kind of specific classes that they would take within the networking degree?
Okay, well, within the networking degree, we give them some background in hardware and in server, but the main focus is on network appliances. So we show them the concept of networking in general, what the subnets and the class of and how.
When you say appliances, what is that?
It's actually the hardware that we use on the network.
So the physical devices.
Yeah, we're talking about the switches, the routers that connect, and the hubs, and we show them how that connection is and basic configuration on those devices in the first 2 semesters. So they're able to go in there and configure to where they can talk to another device.
Okay.
And then they can connect the PC and connect to other devices with it. When we get into CISCO 3 and CISCO 4, we get into a more dynamic, and that's the fastest growing area. Like in the switching, we show them the different layers of switching and how we can speed up the network a lot faster. We're putting in some redundant connections between the different layers. We show them how to do the ether channels, where we're actually creating bigger pipes for doing for speeding up traffic going up. In the routing, or in CISCO 4, we start talking about your setting up your major connections, where we're actually having we can create virtual LANs, which are broadcast domains down in the switching area, and then being able to send them out through the internet.
So what I had described also was in that major degree, so the first year in each of those degrees, it's the exact same courses.
Right.
And then the second year, we try to branch out and the courses start differing. So how does CISCO play a part in this particular degree plan as opposed to maybe other institutions that are not CISCO certified? What does that mean to us, or specifically, what does that mean to the student?
Well, one of the things is they get trained on CISCO equipment, which right now CISCO controls about 99.9% of hardware distributed around the world for the network.
Right, so you're saying maybe like a company like Time Warner, which recently changed their name, but Time Warner is using CISCO devices to get that signal to the homes.
Right.
Okay.
No. So and I guess that was a model that CISCO decided to do back when they designed the academies, because students become familiar with those devices, and when they go out, they're able
Right,
to
so
work
they'll
on.
be able to hopefully get up and running right away because they'll be familiar with the actual physical unit and the operating system.
And initially, the CISCO Academy was not really a main factor in a lot of universities, but now they're saying that it is to their advantage to bring them into the main line and use them part of their degree plans, because there's a lot of technology that's as it's changing, because the course material changes along with the certifications.
Right.
So as the certifications increase in knowledge and expertise, so does the classes in this.
So one of the disadvantages, though, I was going to ask you about is the difficulty on finding instructors, because in order to teach the CISCO classes, you have to be also certified by CISCO to teach that, right? Such as you are, and now I'm not, so I can't even teach those classes.
Right.
So are you having difficulty finding people?
We sometimes we do, but for the most part, we're with adjunct faculty and ourselves, we're able to make the loads on it. We're teaching the 4 semesters of CCNA every semester, and in the summer. So we try and have it available for students as they're coming through.
So when you say that, you know, CISCO 1, 2, 3, 4, are those 4 individual classes, or are they a combination of maybe 4, 5, 6, 7 classes, or what is that?
Well, we're running 2 two classes of CISCO 1, 2 classes of CISCO 2.
Okay, so we're talking 4 classes of CISCO,
Right.
intertwined with other types of classes that we teach that are regular classes in our inventory, such as what?
Well, we're having the hardware, we're having the server, we're having some Linux classes.
Oh, okay.
And then in the first semester on both, we do an introductory to cybersecurity, which actually maps out to the Security Plus certification.
Oh.
So they get that feel in either option.
So have we had students that have actually followed through and got their certifications? Or do you know students that have actually done that?
Yeah, in fact, I have one student right now that finishing up her degree plan in cybersecurity. She got her networking first. Now she's doing the security option. She's already received and qualified for her CCNA, so she's certified as a CISCO.
It's interesting you said her, because I just read an article, in fact, in the paper today about Silicon Valley, which is where all of our technology firms are. Google's out there and Intel's out there. And they were saying about only 20% of their workforce is females. But I've started to see in our degrees, in my classes, more and more females. Are you noticing that in networking? Because in the past, they kind of shied away from that. It was just mostly guys, but now I'm starting to see a little change.
Well, I guess the advantage of having the CISCO in both options is that we get girls coming into the cybersecurity area.
Oh, okay.
That's what they're interested in. But then, since they have to take the CISCO, then they understand that this is not as bad as it sounds.
Right.
And so they're starting to, as an option, they're starting to see that it's a valid path.
Yeah, and I wish we could do a better advertisement about that. Yes, IT, it's a little bit higher level sometimes with the topics and the things you're going to learn, but when you get in there and you get around it a little bit, it's not as bad as you first thought. And I think that a lot of people don't come to the IT discipline because they're worried about all the difficult, hard stuff that they're going to have to learn.
Yeah, a lot of it is abstract, but I found that over the years that when I have girls in the class or females in the class, they're more of a view and hands-on type of thing.
Okay.
They learn better if you actually have them do it.
Yeah, and that's one of the advantages of our degree plans as opposed to maybe some other institutions. Almost all of our classes are hands-on.
Right.
So when I teach Excel, you're doing it right there with me. So when you're doing networking, they're with the wires and everything right there. So at an entry-level point, so if a student graduates with a 2-year degree, what kind of positions do you think that they could kind of start with as they hopefully pursue maybe a bachelor's degree in that type of technology? What kind of positions are we talking about?
Well, they're going to be a little bit higher than entry level, because I've had students get hired and right off the bat they're looking at $30,000-$40,000.
Oh, nice.
And so if they have that in their array of classes, if they go into a 4-year institution, well, they have a lot of the stuff. Well, I should say they have a lot of background to where the theory that they're teaching at the 4-year becomes a lot easier for them to do.
And couldn't they really, any business in El Paso right now that has anything related to data transfer, they could get positions. So I'm talking about like all the cell phone companies, all of the internet service providers, the TV stations, any of that really.
Yeah,
they would be able to get into.
Yeah, because we've had students working like at some of the major TV stations, because a lot of this technology is a networking technology.
Oh, interesting. So on that same theme, one of the difficulties sometimes I find in some of my classes, like the programming classes or the database classes, or even especially when I'm teaching Excel, is kind of their math skills. So what's preventing them from maybe being successful in Excel is not really Excel itself and those concepts, it's the underlying concepts of math. So within the networking technologies, how much does math skills play, and what kind of component are we talking about?
Well, math does make it has a very solid base in networking.
Okay, yeah, that's what I was thinking.
Yeah, because even when we're talking about your data structures, when you're talking about your signals, it's all based in what we call binary numbering.
Okay, so not only they have to have regular math skills, but now you got to learn new math skills.
And then we have, in a lot of our addressing schemes, we're looking at hex numbers.
Hexadecimal. Okay, so binary, just so you know, binary and hexadecimal is just another way of counting.
Right.
Instead of base 10, which is what we use, 0 through 9, we're doing other things, which I don't want to get into, but just
Be a nice, interesting thing.
yeah, maybe I'll do it a show sometime.
But anyway, so a lot of it does deal with that when we're talking about signals. We're talking about even your sound waves, your radio frequency rates. So all of it has a basis in math. So even when we start creating the networks themselves, creating the IP addresses for the different networks, we do subnetting. And again, a lot of it is the principles of basic math. And so we try and bring them to par within the first 2 semesters.
Yeah, I was saying, so what do we do for those students that do have kind of, a little bit lower math skills? Is there sections within the courses that develop those?
We can insert,
Right.
Insert a little bit more, a stronger emphasis on certain math skills. Like what there are a lot of times have a hard time is being able to, when we're talking about memory addresses, you're talking about hex memory addresses as compared to the binary that's being put into them. So it's just trying to get the relationship, like from decimal to binary, how easy it really is. Where we try and make it to where they can convert it mentally rather than having to rely on the computer.
When we do that, all of it is manual math skills. Are there, like we were talking about, CAM programs? So part of the technologies, they don't come up with those numbers for you, or it's based upon your initial numbering?
There is a lot of programs available where
Right.
we can just punch in the numbers and they'll give us what we
But
want.
we still want to be able to tell
Yeah.
that it's working properly.
And like I tell them, when you're out troubleshooting, sometimes you're not going to have some of this.
So I mean, those kind of things that you have to know, like let's say the building we're in, we have to start with how many devices we want connected, right? So we have to count up all the offices, all the computers, and determine what kind of hardware we're going to need to feed all that data.
Yeah, and then the other thing we have to look at is, do we want to separate some of the networks so we don't have access to everybody? So like say you might have accounting, they don't want to have people from, say, warehousing.
Right.
To have access
to be access to their data or their network at all.
We can configure in the devices, and we can segregate them.
Okay, so that we're kind of segueing to something we were talking about earlier about security.
Right.
So one of those degree plans, one of the branches was security. So what kind of things are we looking at there for security?
Well, on that we built on the technology of networks because we emphasize the security in terms of the internet, in terms of local networks. And so what initially started as a method to facilitate communications, the early communications. A lot of drivers, a lot of the basic programs were built to make communication real easy.
Okay.
Well, with making those programs real easy, it created a lot of channels for people to hijack
to
them.
get into, right?
And so now what we're doing is we're going back to those basic programs. Okay, these are weak. This is what we have to do to mitigate anybody trying to get into our system. And so we start developing postures of how to segregate a network to where we can have firewalls and have protection, and then have how to configure the devices to where they're not getting compromised. Emphasizing a lot on just keeping everything up to date, patches, making sure that a lot of times we think that we configure something right, and we don't test it. Sometimes we may make an error in there.
Right.
And so we need to do the part of it is just testing your system, and which really is going to the emergence of a new, well, not a new, but a stronger field in IT is pen testing.
Is what?
Pen testing, penetration testing.
Oh, okay.
So we, like in one of our classes in our degree plan, we actually map it to the ethical hacker certification.
Oh, okay.
Where we teach them the different programs that you can use to do reconnaissance on machines and the network and find out where there's some flaws, and how we can penetrate, we can pull out information.
Interesting.
So that's the other aspect of it, but it's all built on the networking concept. Because if they understand how the networking, a lot of times in the security, we go back and we explain, okay, remember how this works, and,
Right.
and this is how it works, and because of that, this is how we can break into the systems and take advantage of it.
Interesting. Speaking of networking and security, so sometimes, especially people that have seen my show, they ask me, of course, computer questions all the time. I'm sure everyone asks computer questions. So we were talking about I was talking about operating systems. In fact, just a few shows ago when we were introducing Windows 10, about making sure the updating is turned on and you have all those patches. Describing what a patch is, where it comes in, and rewrite some of the code related to certain things. And then I talked about, some people say, well, can I do my banking at my hotel room on an open Wi-Fi? So of course I'm saying, absolutely not. So what about now? Everybody's doing things with mobile devices, and I know you guys do things with mobile devices. So there's an app to get onto my local bank, GECU, but even though it's kind of like something like an old wives' tale, I believe it to be totally safe, but I will not do any banking on my cell phone. I want to be on my local network, at my house, where I know it's password secured. So what do you feel about that? What about mobile devices and security, since we were talking about that?
Well, the thing is that they do present a big hole, because a lot of people, the convenience of mobile devices.
Right, exactly.
Your social
You're
networking.
on a double-edged sword here.
And then with the expansion of Bluetooth, it really opens up a lot. A lot of people will take advantage, and they associate with their wireless speakers. They'll associate with their earphones.
Right. We did a show on that, as a matter of fact.
And the technology in Bluetooth right now is for easy access.
Right.
So you turn it on, and right away they
The
pair.
devices recognize each other, and we're up and running.
And so we walk away from it. We forget to turn off the Bluetooth.
Right.
And so anybody in our vicinity can actually hook onto our machines using a pairing system. Also, the technologies with NFS, where you're actually transferring by proximity between devices,
Okay.
is left on. And so again, I can put my phone here, you can put your phone here, and I can connect to it, and I've taken over it.
So you're saying that even if I'm not going to be pairing a device, so this would be a good tip on the show, is turn off your Bluetooth if you're not connecting to devices. Now, I don't do that right now, because my car can connect through Bluetooth. So when I go to my car, I want my phone to automatically connect, and where.
And see, that goes back to early technology,
Right.
early networks. We make it convenient,
Right.
to have all of these
But
things.
we make it convenient for everybody.
to get on there. Yeah. Even
interesting.
Even Wi-Fi.
Right.
We at home, a lot of people will turn on Wi-Fi to make up, to not to use so much data, but we leave it on as we walk away.
Right.
And again, let it open.
But at my house, my Wi-Fi is coming through the modem, which is password. It's all protected. So,
Yeah.
I mean, that should be okay to me. Is that
Well,
something
it's
I'm
protect
missing?
because you're connecting to that. But if you look at your phone, when you're going to turn on your Wi-Fi, you'll see a whole list of available access points.
Correct.
Some are encrypted, some are not.
Okay.
And somebody can, by the same way that they're seeing those modems, they can see your phone.
Right. So if they see mine, though mine's encrypted, they shouldn't be able to connect to my device unless they have my password.
Well,
Theoretically.
no, because the
No?
password is connecting to your access point. It's not connecting to yours. In other words, if you don't have a password on your phone, you can't connect to your access point.
Okay.
So your phone is really open because there's no password on the phone. Even if you have your opening password,
Like a screen lock or something.
that's not going to control your wireless
Now you're
device.
bumming me out. Where am I going to do my banking now? Now I have to go back to the bank.
Go see the tellers. No, most of the banks now are putting in security. So
Right. So.
as long as you follow, just connect.
Yeah,
do
and
that
I
just
do that,
connect.
and I've been doing online banking probably for as long as they've been doing. I don't know, probably what 6, 7, 8 years they've been doing online banking, and it's just way too convenient. I hardly ever go into a bank anymore. And one of the things you see in banking, which might be related to, again, professions with this networking, is now you go into these banks like GECU, you don't have a physical teller anymore. You have all these machines, and you connect to a monitor where there's the teller. I'm assuming they're at their main building on Airway, and you conduct business through the machine and the teller on the screen.
Yeah. Again, the idea of convenience.
Convenience.
Even your deposits now, you can just do it to an ATM, send it through. Again, it's just an awareness thing that we need to emphasize more.
You got to do good habits.
Yeah, good habits.
Good computing habits.
Because the technology is getting to the point where it's affording us the convenience and the security's there if we take advantage of it. Just like when they first came out with the wireless cars. Okay,
right.
Okay, so can we hack into cars? Yes, we can. We can control them. I remember when they first started.
Yeah, I remember seeing an article where the guy's accelerator just goes automatically, and he didn't touch it. So someone's controlling that.
Yeah, and it all started when I know that maybe 7 years ago, I think GM had a car there at our automotive section, and Leo came by and asked me, said, "Can we borrow a cord?" I said, "What kind of cord?" I said, "A network cord." I said, "What are you going to do? Connect motor to motor?" And no, they were getting a demonstration by GM where the guy went in and disabled a lot of the systems in the car. And then they have, at that time, they had some mobile areas. And I wasn't sure as to how they were set up, but you could actually, kind of like that STAR program where you could call in.
Right.
And I'm having trouble.
OnStar, yeah.
They'll come out and through a network, they'll check your car, do diagnostics.
Oh, interesting.
And they turn on the stuff that was turned off.
Yeah.
So,
Well, Tony, I really appreciate you coming on the show. You really opened our eyes. In the next show, I may further explain, like hexadecimal, just show them a little tidbit of that. I really want to thank you.
I appreciate your time.
And I'd like to thank you for joining me on another episode of Computer Train. And tune in next time, and I will explain some of those terms that he just described. Thank you for joining me on Computer Train.